In today's lesson, we're going to look at cleft sentences. Cleft sentences are complex. There are quite a few variations of cleft sentences, but in today's lesson, we're going to look at the most common. It-cleft sentences, WH-cleft sentences, and all-cleft sentences. If you know how to use these, the other variations become much easier to learn and recognize. At the end of this lesson, I have a test for you. A test with five questions. At the end of this lesson, can you give me your score in the comments down below? Did you get 5 out of 5? Maybe 3 out of 5? Let me know. My name's Arnel. Let's start. Cleft. What does cleft mean? If you want to understand today's grammar, you need to understand its name. Cleft means divided. So for example, we can say, he has a cleft chin. You can see a little divide there. But the adjective cleft is actually not so common in English. So in today's lesson, what is being divided? How does a sentence become a cleft sentence? I'll show you. Let's start with a really simple conversation. How was your trip to Greece with Steph? Yeah, good? I heard she dropped her passport off a boat. Her passport? No, she dropped my passport. Okay, here we have a really standard conversation. But in this last part here, I'm correcting someone, right? What can I do to give a little bit more emphasis to this correction? I can use a cleft sentence. Her passport? No, it was my passport that she dropped. It, be, main focus, that clause. What do I mean by that clause? That plus subject, verb. We use cleft sentences to emphasize information or to correct someone. Of course, you could just use a standard sentence, but we need variety. What's being divided here? We have new information, old information. You can see the it part really emphasizes something new. Cleft sentences are great in spoken English, but you'll see them a lot in written English. Why? Because in writing, you can't emphasize things with your voice or your facial expressions. So what can we do? We use the grammar. So keep your eyes peeled for cleft sentences when you're reading. Let's do another example. We met our client John Bloom last Monday, right? Last Monday. No, we met him last Tuesday. Remember the offices were closed last Monday? What's a different way I can correct this person? How can I emphasize new information? Last Monday? No, it was last Tuesday that we met him. It, be, main focus, that clause. New information, old information. Excuse me, there are so many forms for me to choose from. Which one do I need as a new student? You need form B6115. Let's make this more emphatic. It's form B6115 that you need. New information, old, known or obvious information. I hope you're starting to get a good feeling for these it-cleft sentences. Let's take this up a notch. I'm going to give you 4 more examples, each with a mini change. I believe it was Shel Silverstein who wrote The Giving Tree. It was a painting by my uncle, which inspired me to study art history. It's not a cricket's mouth that makes the chirping noise. It's actually its wings or legs. It's Matt and Jessica who are having the party, not me. Okay, let's look at the first two sentences. You can see I've used a different relative pronoun. That is really common in cleft sentences, but we can also use who or which. Who, which, or that are part of what we call defining relative clauses. And you might think, oh, defining relative clauses, what more grammar terminology? For today's lesson, you do not need to be a pro on this topic, but I want to give you a little reminder. We can use who or that to give more information about a person. Shel Silverstein is a man, so I can use who. Who is a little bit more formal, that is a little less formal, but people really use these two interchangeably. We can use that or which for things. A painting by my uncle, that's an object, so I can use which. Which is a little bit more formal, that is a little bit less formal, but again, people use these two interchangeably. I do have a complete lesson on relative pronouns and defining relative clauses on my YouTube channel. I'll leave a link down below for you. In sentence number 3, I just wanted to show you that we can also make the sentence negative. It's not. I added not there. Perfectly fine. Sentence number 4. Matt and Jessica. That's plural. It doesn't matter if you have a plural in the sentence, you still need a singular be after it. It is or it was. But in the relative clause, we can use that plural verb, here, are, or maybe were. Okay, are we done with it-cleft sentences? Not quite. Let's keep going. Here we have a mix of the sentences we looked at earlier in this lesson. I have my relative pronouns. Which relative pronouns can I remove? We often remove a relative pronoun in informal situations if it's the object of the verb. What do I mean? Let's look at sentence number 1. I have my that clause. What's the verb here? Drop. What's my subject of this verb? She. What did she drop? The passport. And the passport is the object of my verb. So here I do not need that. It was my passport she dropped. Perfectly correct. Let's look at sentence number 2. Who wrote the giving tree? My verb is wrote. What's the subject of this verb? Here it's Shel Silverstein. So I cannot remove who because that's my subject. I cannot say it was Shel Silverstein wrote the giving tree. Here's a little trick. If you have a subject and a verb after your relative pronoun, you can remove it. If you only have a verb after your relative pronoun, you need to keep it because it's the subject. Okay, for sentences 3 to 7, decide if you can keep or remove that relative pronoun. Pause the video to do this. Okay, we can remove the relative pronoun in sentences 5 and 7. How do we know that? Because after the pronoun, you see a subject and a verb.
Made the Turkish Sultan. These are the same men who murdered my father.
And how can you be so sure? So sure it was the nobles.
Because had my father fulfilled his mission, it was them who had everything to lose.
Is who the subject or the object of the clause? Here it's the subject, so we cannot remove it. And watch this again. Notice how the actor emphasizes the main focus, them, with his hand.
Because had my father fulfilled his mission, it was them who had everything to lose.
Your mission?
Mini review. It-cleft sentences are used to emphasize information or to correct someone. Cleft sentences are divided into new information, or old, obvious, known information. We use a structure, it, be, main focus plus who, which, that clause. You can remove the relative pronoun who, which, or that if it's the object. And remember, after it, we always need a singular be form, is or was. Let's keep going. Wh-cleft sentences. What do I mean by WH? Who, what, when, where, why, and how. We'll do lots of examples. We need more time for this project. Standard sentence. We need more funding. Funding means money. Money given to you for a project or to do research. Now, let's make this more emphatic. Cleft sentence. What we need is more funding. WH, subject, verb, be, main focus. Old or known information, new information. What we need is more funding. Let's compare this to an it-cleft sentence just for a second. It's more funding that we need. So both of these give you the same information, but again, it's about that variety. And notice in a WH-cleft sentence, the main information comes at the end. In an it-cleft sentence, that main information, that new information comes at the beginning after it. Do you want to have some fun? We can reverse the parts. More funding is what we need. Perfectly correct. Let's do another example. My car has been having trouble starting lately. Standard sentence. You need a new battery. Cleft sentence. What you need is a new battery. WH, subject, verb, be, main focus. Old information, new information. Let's reverse those parts. A new battery is what you need. And many times you'll just see the WH clause as a title of a video. For example, what athletes eat in a day? Or what I got for my birthday. These are just half of a cleft sentence. It's half because the main information, that new information, is in the video. So when you're looking through YouTube, keep your eyes peeled for titles like that.
Anywhere. I want to get away from here.
Say, what you need is a drink.
Yes, a drink. Lots of drink.
More walk, less talk. That's my motto. What he needs is photo ops. Like maybe you should plant some trees.
Berta doesn't want to take charity. What she wants is to prove that she can make it on her own, stand on her own 2 feet, earn her own.
Probably one of the reasons you love Annie.
That's what I love most about her.
That's when it hit me like a Mack truck.
The English Patient.
It's just a stupid movie.
That's what I'm talking about.
Come on, Blake. Let's go.
Here we have 5 more examples. The first example is simple. What? Subject, verb, be, main focus. What you need is a drink. In the second example, we can see a plural noun, photo ops. And photo ops is short for photo opportunities. Definition: a chance for people to take pictures of you so you can become more popular. Celebrities and politicians need photo ops. Photo ops is plural. Why do I have a singular verb? The WH clause is considered singular in cleft sentences. So even if your noun is plural, use is or was. Here's another example. What my son loved most was toy trains. Plural noun, but be stays singular. Yes, it's possible to use are and were, but that's considered less formal. In the third example, after be, we have an infinitive. So the main focus of a Wh-cleft sentence doesn't have to be a noun. Remember what I said? There are lots of varieties. Look at these last two examples. These have already been reversed. What I love most about her is that. What I'm talking about is that. Here, that is acting as a pronoun. So beginning a cleft sentence with that is really common. You might also notice the verbs need, want, love. A lot of times we use these emotional verbs. Okay, we've looked at quite a few cleft sentences beginning with what, but of course there are other WH words. Who first accused the CEO of embezzlement is unknown. Embezzlement. Embezzlement is a crime. It means stealing money from a company to use for your own personal things. When a person should get married is a personal choice. Students, you need to find all 6 of these objects hidden somewhere in this park. Where they are is something you need to find out. What? Where they are is? Is it possible to have a double B? Absolutely correct. Why Steve quit uni is a mystery. Sandra was lost in the woods for 3 weeks. How she survived is an amazing story. You should read her book. Okay, in this structure, we can replace WH with all. All is really common. And in this case, all means the only thing. Imagine a parent with a new baby. I want more sleep. Standard sentence. Let's emphasize that. All I want is more sleep. More sleep is all I want. These all cleft sentences are really common in songs. Why? Because songs are emotional, so a lot of times people try to add more emphasis by using this grammar. Remember how Sandra was lost in the woods for 3 weeks? How did she survive? Standard sentence. She found a water source and built a shelter under a tree. Now, this is pretty impressive. It's a great opportunity to use a cleft sentence. What she did was find a water source and build a shelter under a tree. What? Subject, do, did, does. Be, to is optional. Verb 1. It's quite a long structure. So we use this structure with do, did, does when we want to emphasize an action that has quite a bit of information connected to it. I can't believe Aaron didn't call the police. What he did was try to solve the crime himself. What? Subject, do, did, does. Be, to is optional, and verb number 1. So in both of the examples I gave you, you can see to in parentheses. Yes, to is optional. You can choose to use it or not. But in my opinion, the structure without to is more common. And just like earlier, we can replace what with all. Again, all meaning the only thing. I don't know why Emily was so offended. All I did was ask her a question. This vacuum is useless. All it does is scare our dog. All I do every day is sit at home. Another mini review before the test. In this structure here, we can use who, what, when, where, why, and how. We can replace WH with all. That's also possible. The WH clause is considered singular, so be is singular, is or was. Sometimes you might hear are or were, but that's considered less formal. In this structure here, we can reverse the parts. Perfectly correct. And we often see emotional verbs like need, want, like love, enjoy, things like that. We also have this structure here. We can replace what with all. And here, to is optional. Okay, are you ready for a test? Okay, test time. One of the most important things to remember about cleft sentences is the structure. Without that structure, cleft sentences really don't work. So that's what I want to test. I have 5 sentences and they have been scrambled up. Can you please make complete sentences by putting the words in the correct order? Pause the video to do this. Right, here are the answers. And just so you know, in number 1, today can go at the beginning or at the end. Both are fine. Whichever one you did is perfect. Give me your score down below. I would love to hear from you. You can even give me an example sentence using a cleft sentence. Challenge yourself. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.